Yeah, keep doing it.
Okay.
Is that on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. Okay, this question, level 3, number 11, it is a ridiculous question, but in some ways doable. Now, what I normally do in terms of balancing chemical equation, what I like to do is that I usually start off or focus on the things that only happens once on each side. So normally, if you look at this, I will stay away from the oxygen first, okay? Because that's complicated. From the look of it, I would normally I would start off trying to balance the copper, but trying to do this question a number of times, I realized starting with copper is actually a bad idea because copper here stands alone. It's easy to balance copper. As the hydrogen and the nitrogen and the oxygen, that's the trouble. So I'm going to start off trying to balance the nitrogen first. Okay. So nitrogen, I'm going to try and balance it off first. On this side here, I have one nitrogen so far, the invisible one. On this side, I have two nitrogen. I have two nitrogen plus nitrogen from here. Now, I know that last year you guys have learned when, if you have an NO3 on one side and if you have NO3 on the other side, you can treat it as is. You can keep it together. But because this NO3, you realize that it separates. Some of it stays the same, some of it breaks down to nitric oxide, some of it breaks down to water. So you can't do that. So you do have to separate the nitrogen and oxygen. Now, so on this side you have two nitrogen from this source, one nitrogen from this source. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, instead of doing this times 3, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to put a big 4 here. So I will have 4 nitrogen. And on this other side, I'll just put a big 2 in front of this NO. So in this case, now I have 2 plus 2 gives me 4. Okay? So far it looks okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to balance, look at the hydrogen now. The hydrogen, I now have 4 hydrogen on this side. On this side, I have only 2. So I will have to put a big 2 in front of it so to make it into 4. So far it looks okay. Now, this is where the fun comes in. Oxygen. How many oxygen on this side?
3.
3 times 4 is 12. On this side here, I have 6 plus
4.
2. 1 times 2 is 2 plus 2 plus, so that's another 2. Now that gives me 10. So this doesn't balance. Now, what I'm going to try and do right now, instead of trying to change any of these numbers, once I change any of these numbers, then this will get mucked up. So immediately what I'm going to do is, I'm missing 2 here, so I'm going to backtrack. Here, I'm going to go back to this step. I'm going to start backtracking. So on here, so rather than times 4, I'm going to backtrack and times 8. Because obviously, if I have 4 here, there's not enough oxygen to balance on the other side. So I need more oxygen on my left-hand side. So I'll just double this number, 8. Okay? Once it's balanced, you can reduce it. It's easy. So I'll put 8 here. So now I have 8. So go back to the nitrogen step. Now I have 8 nitrogen. I have 2 here. I'm going to erase some of this stuff. So I have 2 nitrogen here. I have some nitrogen here. Now, because I have 8 nitrogen on this side, I know, and if you look at the chemical reaction, some of this nitrate breaks down into here, right? And since there's 2 times of this number, so most of the nitrogen should go here, and some of it should go here. So what I'm going to do is that I'll just say, I'll just put 3 here. So in this case, most of the nitrogen from this 8, 3 times 2 is 6. And then I'll just need 2 more here to balance it out to 8. Do you guys follow so far? The reason why I backtrack to 8 is because there wasn't nitrogen earlier, but I put 4 here. So I just doubled that number. And looking at the equation, it's like, yeah, most of this nitrogen will stay at this side because it's bracket 2. So that's just a hinge to try. Okay? And then some of it goes here. Now, let's go back to the hydrogen. Do you guys follow so far? Now hydrogen, I have 8 here. How many hydrogen? So I have 2 hydrogen here, so I will need to put a 4, big 4 in front of it. So 4 times 2 now will give me 8. Yeah, so far so good. Now here's the tricky part. Let's try the oxygen. So how many oxygen do I have on this side?
24.
24. 8 times 3 gives me 24. So let's see. 3 oxygen times 2, that gives me 6. 6 times 3, that gives me 18. So I have 18 from this guy, copper nitrate. I have 2 oxygen still from the nitric oxide. I have 4 times 1, that gives me 4. So 18 plus 2 plus 4, that gives me 24. So oxygen now, yay, is balanced. So in this case, now I try to balance copper now because copper is dead easy balance at this point. You have 3 copper here, so I just need to put a big 3 in front of it. Boom. Good? Okay? So, as I said before, this is to solve this question, you kind of have to look at this last part here and I'm thinking about, like, okay, most of this nitrate will stay here, some of it break down. That was pretty much the hunch. It takes me a while to just really, kind of what you have done, trial and error. There's a lot of trial and error. But once you kind of see that, oh, most of it will stay here, and then you kind of play around the amount, you distribute, it becomes easy. You guys follow so far? Okay, thank you. Nope, you took it already?